It's the Healthy, Well, and Wise show with Barb from, where are you from, Barb? Simcoe, Ontario, I do believe now. Yes, that's the
Simcoe,
home office.
Ontario. Yes. Yep.
Um,
Home office.
Off air, we are having this really unique conversation about the whole medical field. And I thought it was really important that we have this discussion because some of the points that you brought up, and I was sharing with you some of my situations I've been in my life and how great and caring some of the people were in the medical profession that helped me. And it seems like sometimes, and I've had this and you've had this, I think, where you might go to an office for an appointment and there's such a disconnect sometimes. Like I get that the doctors and the nurses are so busy and, they're there to take care of the physical elements. And, I don't know, I always need to know who I'm dealing with. I need that sense of
Right.
comfort or ease into a
Yeah.
situation. But I understand
Yeah.
they don't have the time anymore. It's gotten pretty crazy, isn't it? Sometimes the disconnection between yourself and a medical professional.
You're absolutely right. It's something that my clients continually express is this feeling of, you know, a lack of not necessarily validation, but just recognition. And some of it is certainly because our generations, and any baby boomers, our reality of what medicine was at one point, it was a very different thing. You went into the office and didn't matter if you had stubbed your toe, right? That doctor was going to take your blood pressure, check your ears, your eyes, your nose, your throat, check to
Yeah.
see if you had a temperature, palpate your abdomen. It wasn't basically boiled down to that one thing. And I'm not blaming our hardworking medical profession, right? The mandates they're far beyond anything that they have control over. And I refuse to think that they're any happier than a lot of their patients are that know the difference in that doctor patient experience. We need to work together. We need to know that there is a connection, not just to the immediate, but to understanding the why behind everybody. And I know they don't have the time for that. And it's why we need, as individuals and as moms, dads, grandparents, to really be leaning into the everyday of our health because the system, as many advances as we have in some ways, we have gone so far backwards the other way.
I think too, when you start talking about it in those terms, it's almost like the system maybe needs some kind of reboot where there's a secondary before you go into a doctor where, you're sitting with someone like yourself and we're saying, let's do this checklist. Let's see where
Mhm.
you're at physically and mentally, because before you see that doctor, that information can be passed upstream type thing. So you understand that doctor understands what he's getting going into a situation, because I think that's probably part of it where you've lost this innate ability. When we were kids, you knew your family doctor and your family doctor knew your family. And so
Mhm.
they already knew what was probably going on, or what was, what a medical condition that may be, heart disease or something going through that family. That's been established. And here's
Right.
what we're going to do to avoid that. You know what I mean? So maybe
Yeah.
turning off that highway a little earlier, right, makes a big difference in the medical field as far as what the costs are, or what just knowing your client base could be, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the doctors they were community doctors. So not
Yeah.
only did they know you, but they knew your parents, your grandparents,
Yeah.
they understood the correlations. They understood more about those family units and other challenges that those families were facing. And we can't discredit those. It goes right back to that word I absolutely love, psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology. And it's like we can't separate the brain and the mind and the mental health from what's going on within our bodies. And in fact, our bodies are screaming at us because the more they try to separate that, the more we realize that this isn't right, that we have to address these things. It's not enough to see what's wrong with a person, but it's to understand why it's wrong with that person. and looking deeper. And that's, unfortunately, that's the humanity part of doctoring that is being forced out. And yet it's the part that especially those of us that are baby boomers recognize was one of the most valuable facets of it. And, doctors aren't happy about it. Patients aren't happy about it. And yet it's a system that isn't, I don't know how we address going back in and understanding, because it's, as kids, we always asked why. And then you get to a certain age and you're in trouble for asking why. It's like, no, we all need to be asking why about ourselves on all the different levels. We need to be, you know, understanding ourselves first, because how can we convey that to anybody else if we aren't working on figuring that out ourselves?
I got to ask, because you see a lot of clients in your business, and is it just that? I mean, I think your initial visit's probably an hour, but I mean, is it just people wanting to unload a little bit to get? I mean, what I always appreciated is you're trying to figure out who that person is before you even start looking at the mental, physical components of what you want to help them with. You have to know that person and who they are. It's not just written on a piece of paper. You need to hear it and sort of be present in that moment to see how they react, what
Mhm.
they're what they're feeling. Is
Right.
that a big thing that you see in your business right now?
It's huge. I mean, an initial consultation is an hour and a half.
There
And,
you go.
that hour and a half belongs to that individual. There are intake forms, but sometimes what they've written on their form is just scratching the surface of them actually starting to look at themselves and what they want. My responsibility within that is that complete holistic approach, right? Mind, body, spirit. It's not just about what they're eating. It's not just about how they're sleeping. It's not just about their activity level. It's about every facet. It's about how they're responding to things. What are their support systems? What's their level of connection? Because isolation, what we've talked about this before, somebody chronically feeling isolated is as damaging as smoking 15 cigarettes a
Yeah.
day. So, how can we separate that mind-body connection? That should never be separated. It needs to be taken into consideration. So that consultation is, first of all, it's being present for that person, completely and totally present and compassionate, and then understanding how to move forward to help them in the way that's best. It's not it's like, yes, there's always going to be certain things, maybe they need to drink a bit more water, maybe they need to take a walk, and, maybe all they need is to give themselves permission to take a relaxing bath, a few
Yeah.
times a week. But they shouldn't need permission. And
No.
yet, they need somebody to care enough to tell them, yes, you do deserve this, you do need this, this will be good for you. But it's finding those little baby steps, because our the way we become conditioned or just disassociated, it's over the years. It's People don't realize how much they deserve to feel well, that
Yeah.
it's okay to give themselves permission, and that it's not selfish to have self-care. If moms were demonstrating that within their family unit right from the get-go, that they're not just mom. I'm a human being. I have needs as you have needs. And if they exhibit that they value themselves enough to carve that time out, their relationships are going to be different with every family member. And yet, there's so much conditioning throughout the generations that, no, you give up all of who you are to become a mom. It's like, no, imagine the kids we would raise if that was demonstrated from the get-go, and that is, we seek out people to make sure that happens, that whoever your partner or spouse is, whoever your other families are. Everybody's going to treat you differently if you honor yourself. And some people aren't going to like it, and that's okay. It's not a popularity contest, but it is definitely an exercise in self-examination, self-evaluation, self-worth, and finding people that connect with you in that way and help support you in that way. And that's what's very alien to all of us, and not just women. We see that I see it in all of my male clients where a family member, perhaps their wife or a child, gets sick with a serious illness like cancer. And here they are. They've always been the breadwinner, and now they can't fix it. And so their mental health gets taken in a very, very serious and bad direction because suddenly they don't feel like they're a valuable human being because they can't fix something. And so we have to look at, well, you're putting an unrealistic pressure on yourself because it's not yours to fix. It's yours to be there. It's yours to love on your family and support your family, but you didn't break it and it's not yours to fix. And so, when somebody starts drinking heavily or is using marijuana overly often to escape or relax themselves, those aren't sustainable, right? So we're seeing addictive patterns, and our society is saying that that's normal, and that
Yeah,
everybody else is doing it.
acceptable.
It's like, no, we need to get into the why there's this need for escapism, and it's because we need connection. And I know we're opening up a lot of different topics here,
Yeah, for sure.
but a consultation, I mean, it is the first step in helping people connect with who they are and help them explore what they want for themselves. And then looking at all aspects of nutrition and lifestyle, their support systems, how they can support themselves, where they're not supporting themselves. How can I connect you to another health professional that has the designation that you actually really
Need.
need first?
Yeah, I was
And
just gonna
and
say that.
that's what
Yeah.
it's all about. There's no competition there. This is, you know, the person sitting in front of me. I'm helping them value themselves as the person that they have to put first for
It's
that
fun.
time. And yeah.
It's funny you said that because I had written down a note that just said on that what you just said there was, and it was, don't bother the doctor. He's busy. We have this mentality where my problem's not that big. I'm fine. I'll get through this. Right. And again, that's just denying self care a little bit. Where,
Yeah.
and the other point being, and you brought this up just now, was if I come and see you and my checklist is like super negative and you're like, oh, there's something, really physically wrong with you. You need to go see somebody now. I think that's the other part that people need to hear because they don't want to, we're afraid to acknowledge there's something wrong with us, right? We don't want that to be the case. But if someone like
Right.
yourself in your role says, well, I'm not the expert in this, but here's probably the
Mhm.
reason you need to go deal with this right away and then come back to me, you're opening that
Right.
opportunity because you're recognizing that there's a bigger problem there that they can't see at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it all practices. There is a scope of practice that
Yeah,
we
yeah,
must stay in our lane.
yeah,
So it's the wording and being careful about that. But sometimes it's just introducing that concept to the person so that
exactly.
they can come to their own conclusion. But it's just, what level do they want to participate? And what are their goals? It's just gently helping them explore. A lot of it's, some of it's counseling, some of it's coaching, some of it's cheerleading, some of
Yeah, it's a little bit of
it's
everything.
all got science behind it, right? It's got thousands of years of different types of modalities and things like that. But it's putting that person, when they're sitting here, it's about them and
Yeah.
helping them, serve themselves. I can't do it for them. They have to want that responsibility.
Yeah.
For somebody that just, wants that prescription route, I'm probably not your person, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have your journey the way you want to have your journey. But if you truly want to be a participant in your own healthcare and have somebody beside you that's going to help you with that path, then that's what I've been doing for 35 years. And it's a gift to be able to do that.
Great show today, Barb. Healthy, well, and wise. Visit Barb. Just sit down and have a conversation with her. I think she can help you. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dave.